Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. Normally, when I'm out for an episode like I was last time, I'd come back and say, thanks everybody for covering for me. But there was so much East Coast slander at the beginning of last episode.
I don't know what you're talking
from
about.
you guys.
I mean, it's your fault for living in Boston, Joe.
Oh my god. Well, okay, and then yes, Zig, you weren't on that one, but you're now on my list for insinuating that I live in Boston.
Let's be honest, I was on the list anyway.
Yeah.
Look, Joe, I mean, look, my memory is a little hazy. I don't necessarily remember everything I may have said in a prior podcast. I just know that I tend to speak entirely in truths, and whatever I may have said was likely completely factual information. So
look, at least I don't have the elements trying to destroy me at every season of the year out here. And,
you didn't get hurricane.
Yeah, and no hurricanes or earthquakes or fires or anything. Also, you guys are all melting right now as we're recording, and it's a nice 72 degrees here. A little bit of clouds. I'm a little chilly, actually.
I mean, I'll point out that I'm technically further east than you are, and I'm also melting. So,
yeah, so that's fine. But yeah, I'm just saying. Anyway, that aside.
Yes. Speaking of things for further east.
Speaking of heating up.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not going to say heating up on this season, but yes, going even further east to the magical
the
land of
hottest
Japan.
Japanimation.
We've got anime and other things going on to talk about, but first we'll introduce everyone. I'm Jel, joined by Iro.
Hey, I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Iro, who's still with us and not dead, and joined by G.
What's good, everyone?
And we are joined by Zig.
I still don't like Boston.
I don't either. Okay.
Yeah, because I threw all your tea, and it's because I threw all your tea into the bay.
Yeah, I mean, like, look.
Yeah, that's a real
hot, expensive. Damn it.
That's still really burning in the sides of all British people, right? Yeah,
definitely.
That damn tea from 400 years ago or 300 years ago, whatever. Yeah. So anyway, we are approaching the final stretch of the summer season here.
Thank fuck.
We're limping towards the end here as we continue to drop. I've personally continued to drop shows. I'm only watching two things still at this point. It was nice having Artemis on last time to cover some of the other things she was watching.
Yeah,
and she didn't. What was the one crazy thing she mentioned that happened in Zom 100?
Oh god!
About there was like a banker that even the Americans feared or something. Comically.
Unfortunately, no. I think that episode aired after the podcast, so she did not.
Yes, but I'm saying in between episodes here, since she's not here.
That apparently in Zom 100 they're introduced to some like finance bro who's like so powerful. The way they describe his power level is that he survived the Lehman Brothers scandal and collapse.
Jesus,
that always just makes me think of the U.S. president in Chainsaw Man.
Even the Americans fear him, right?
Yes, even Americans fear him.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, I like that multiple genres of anime can use Americans as like this sort of like extra planar ruler for power levels, because like sports anime loves to do this too. I'm like, oh, that Japanese basketball player is such a prodigy. Even American basketball players fear him.
Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, exactly.
Or what? Every time in Baki the Grappler, anytime there's a new American president elected, by that one dude has to go over and like show that he's a badass by intimidating the American president.
Yes, Yujiro Hanma has kidnapped George W. Bush, sexually harassed Hillary Clinton, forced Trump to kneel to him.
Not hard.
No, not difficult in the slightest.
I will say, since the last time Baki came up on this podcast, I have been made aware of the fucking Che Guevara P triangle thing.
Yes, good. Yes. Okay, so here's the crazy thing. There's a Baki anime airing right now, and despite the fact that I have not watched any prior seasons of the anime, there's a part of me that's like, maybe I should just watch that. I got nothing else going on this season.
Yeah, Baki's wild. I've never read or watched any of it, but actually, that's not true. I watched like an OVA in the 90s somewhere at some point that a friend made me watch. I just remember somebody sticking their fingers in somebody's head and grabbing their optic nerves or something. I don't know, but yeah,
that sounds like Baki.
Yeah.
Anyway, coming back to this season and anime and also Toku, because I think we'll start with the changing of the guard with Kamen Rider.
Yes.
Old show out, new show in.
Yeah, so Kamen Rider Geats just wrapped up. For those of you who don't know, Kamen Rider shows are always 1 year long, 50 plus episodes for the most part. So one turning over is a fairly major deal, and also, of course, they turn over completely. There's no continuity of characters or concepts. It's basically a brand new series every year. So Iro and I watched all the way through Kamen Rider Geats. I think it's one of the better shows of recent years. Would you agree, Iro?
By technicality, yes.
Yes, that's the thing. We are starting from a very, very low standard here.
Real vote of confidence there, huh?
So 2 years ago in beginning in 2020. No, wait, that was 3 years ago. Fuck. Whatever. Like a couple of years ago, we had Kamen Rider Saber, which is just one of the worst pieces of media I have ever seen.
It's rough.
Man. And after that we had Kamen Rider Revice, which was uninspired but technically worked as a narrative, which counts as an improvement. I think Geats, that's just wrapped up, I think was a very classic case of there are some great ideas here. They occasionally make good on them. There's some fun stuff, but it's just kind of a mess. The overall impression I got was they had some cool ideas, but nobody had the vision or the time or the skill to knit it all together into kind of a well-tailored story. I mean, Iro, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, that I would broadly agree. I think on one hand, they, knowing that was probably how it was going to be, did chop the show into distinct arcs, but then they did not really have those arcs follow into each other in a logical way. It sort of feels like the show ends 5 times and then puts in new stuff that doesn't fit where it is often. But it turned out okay. Yeah,
I think that it's a show that started strong and sort of gradually lost steam as it went along. Because the whole point is, the whole premise was, it's a battle royale game. They dump however many Kamen Riders into the world, and whoever wins the game gets their heart's desire granted. And the problem is the problem and the interesting thing is, the way they set it up is not that it's one game that lasts the entire series. It's that it's a series of games, and one game normally takes 7 to 10 episodes, and that's interesting because it keeps the format changing and they keep obviously mutating the game, but also it kind of reduces the importance of the whole premise. The idea that you're going to win and have a wish granted is sort of immediately has its legs cut out from under it, because there's only so much you can do to change the premise.
And then in the the last, let's say 10 episodes, there's 4 to 5 different games, right? It's just the world's going to reset every 2 fucking episodes.
Yeah, and by that point, there are multiple characters who are technically gods and all this kind of thing, and it just sort of I would say the last 10 episodes especially, the show just kind of falls apart into just kind of like incoherent fighting, which, it's a kid's show, so that's the most important part. But it is disappointing, because I think that they did have some fun characters, they did have some interesting ideas that they were playing with, but they just couldn't cash the check. They couldn't really draw out all the potential. There's a bit of it, and that's why the show is still fun and broadly entertaining, but there's a lot of untapped potential in the end there, I think.
Yep.
So better than the last two, but maybe not that great overall.
I think the thing, and I wrote quite an extensive final impressions piece, so read that if you want to see like my more granular criticisms. But the thing I kind of speculate on in that is that like the format has become such a straitjacket that it's difficult for them to tell stories the way they want to, because at this point there are so many restrictions. They are limited in the budget they have. Obviously, this has always been a very low budget thing. They are limited with the locations they can shoot. They're limited by them. There's a mandate that there must be so many riders because riders sell toys, and so recent shows have had increasingly large numbers of riders. They're limited in terms of monsters, in terms of like special effects and stuff like that. And the net result of all these things is that kind of recent shows have kind of all been beaten into the same rough mold. And my worry is that they will continue to become more and more homogenized as sort of Toei tighten the screws on that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I guess we're going to find out because we've got the next one.
Yes, I mean, this train never stops.
Yes.
So the new show is called Kamen Rider Gotchard.
Is it train themed?
No, but there is a train involved.
What is the theme, the hook on this one?
It's alchemy. Like the idea is that.
Okay.
Look, there's been some weird shit, but basically the idea is that stop me if you'd heard this one before, but our hero is an ordinary high school student who someday wanders into the realm of alchemists and magicians. And wouldn't you know it, the power of alchemists is represented in the form of handy-dandy, customizably collectible cards that you can buy in blind packs.
Oh, man, we got cards now, too.
I mean, we've had cards multiple times before.
Okay.
Like this is exactly like Power Rangers and Super Sentai. There are certain gimmicks and themes which come around fairly regularly. So the whole shtick here is that he transforms using the power of two separate cards. So you can have combinations of stuff. So his basic form is he combines a grasshopper and a steam train. The steam train can only say steam. The steam train is also voiced by Nobuyuki Hiyama. So
fuck it, sure.
So you just have Nobuyuki Hiyama shouting "Steam" a lot.
Yep, that's pretty good.
That bit's pretty good.
Yeah, the idea is like what each card is like. A Pokeball for some
a
sort
magical
of
creature. They're called chemis.
Yeah, for some sort of creature created by alchemy, right? And so. And they've been scattered to the wind, and the villains are trying to collect them, but the heroes also need to collect them.
Yeah, and
they cause problems.
You've got the usual mishmash of aesthetics here. So the villains are three sisters who look vaguely Egyptian. The lead villain is literally played by a 8-year-old child or something like that. So they look Egyptian, but they are Japanese, obviously, and they're named after the Greek fates. So Clotho, Lachesis.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So already we're kind of all over the place aesthetically.
Ancient Egyptian card games, man.
Yeah, and the whole idea is that there's a secret society of alchemists hidden from the world who have been defending the world with magic and stuff like that. And wouldn't you guess it, our hero's beautiful but cold classmate is secretly an alchemy apprentice, and so is his teacher, and etc.
What I will say is because this setup is so overtly reminiscent to me of kids shows like Yu-Gi-Oh and such, like a Digimon show or something. like the setup is so Yu-Gi-Oh! GX or something, right? Like,
yeah.
Because of that, I'm like a little more willing to roll with it, as opposed to something that's like trying to be more serious.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes a certain amount of sense. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I'm not particularly a big fan of like mystical themed Kamen Riders. They don't tend to have a very great record of this. I mean, like, we've already spoken about Kamen Rider Saber. I was not a big Kamen Rider Wizard fan either, though I know some people are. And, you know, Kamen Rider is one of the few pieces of Japanese media where your hero is generally not a high school student. So making him a high school student is, you know, like, already you have diluted some of the unique appeal for me there, you know. And again, it makes sense because this is a show for like tween and teen boys, but it's everybody just feels a little bit like they're going through the motions in the first episode. By the time you hear this, there will be a second episode out, but we have not yet seen it, so we're going purely on the first episode here. And again, I wrote a post, you can check it out if you want, but my overwhelming impression is that it's fine, you know, but there wasn't really anything which lit a spark for me, really.
What if like this alchemy themed Kamen Rider, like, what if instead it was about a pair of brothers, and you see their mother died when they were young, and it set them down this path of pursuing alchemy, and actually,
you know, transported to the real world.
No, okay, like I was joking at first, but also kind of how fucking sick would it be if there was a Kamen Rider where like you had the person, but their suit was like a sentient, like, wait, has this been done?
I mean, there have been multiple variations of this done. Oh my goodness. Like, normally it's done through the form of the character is possessed by monsters instead. Like, Kamen Rider Den-O is the premier example of this. But there have definitely been, like, you know, wacky hijinks with the source of your powers. Kamen Rider Revice itself was like a buddy duo thing with an extremely racially questionable sidekick.
Oh, cool.
I think Aqua described him speaking in whatever the Japanese equivalent of a black scent is. I did not like Kamen Rider Revice very much.
He's cool with the kids.
Yes, he was. There was very strong "How are you doing, fellow kids?" energy from that character. But in any case, you know, I mean, I think obviously the thing about shows that are a year long, right, is that like you generally have to give them a little bit more time to settle into their rhythm. And the other thing is that, like a lot of kids shows, like every single first episode of Kamen Rider is the same because the whole point is to like show off all the cool merch that is now available on store shelves. So it's kind of hard to judge these shows from the first episode.
I think, like, to get out of what I was saying before, like, these shows do take time to settle into their rhythm, but I think because Gotchard is following like a very familiar rhythm to me, I'm like, okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right? Yeah. And you know, it's too early to say whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not incredibly inspired, but I have been very wrong about Kamen Rider shows before. I mean, in fact, there's plenty of people who will tell you I still am very wrong about Kamen Rider shows. So we'll have to see about that one.
I mean, Iro, is it like, would you say that's kind of playing into your personal childhood nostalgia kind of thing? Or...
Probably. It's like, it also has an opening right back on, so it's like, I think about Gundam Build Fighters.
A word? Back on?
I did not actually know that.
How ill-fitting is the rap interlude?
Yeah, I was going to say, does it have breakdowns for crazy rap segments?
I'm pretty sure it does.
Excellent.
It's a back on track. Like, you know,
yes.
But yes, I just sort of mentally connect that with this show is for kids, and maybe it will be fun if I'm okay with that.
I mean, they're always for kids, but like this one is actually like more leaning into that, right?
I have forgotten one very important thing to mention, which is at one point, just before the fight starts in that first episode, they do a drone shot and the video quality goes through the fucking floor, and I have no idea what
they just had like a off-the-shelf drone.
No. To be clear, that's normally what happens. Normally what happens is the video quality gets way worse because they are clearly just using commercial off-the-shelf drones. This is much worse than that. It goes to like 240p YouTube video levels.
Super blurry, yeah.
That almost...
Somebody duct taped a
VHS camera to a 3G to a
No, because it's like I'm trying to think, right? It's like that almost seems like it had to have been like an encoding issue, or like something wasn't speaking to something else, because I think even the cheapest drone cameras these days do a higher resolution than that.
What it looks like they had to reconstruct it.
Something like that. What it looks like to me is that somebody set like a bitrate cap, and so as the camera starts moving, the quality plummets to try and
man.
So I don't, but like, put it this way, like, we are totally used to when the kinetic drone shots start, the video quality takes a dive because they are switching from proper cameras.
This made us all shout aloud in horror.
Yeah. And let's be clear, like, even the quote-unquote proper cameras used on Kamen Rider are not great. Like, on modern Power Rangers shows, you can very clearly see when they switch to American footage because the quality of the footage leaps up exponentially. Because they're filming the American stuff on like Red Epic 8Ks and stuff like that. But here, like I said, it is literally like, oh shit, this is like you pulled this from like an 8th gen YouTube video. And the only thing I can think of is something went wrong and they did not have time to reshoot it, so they just had to roll with what they've got. Which makes sense, you know, because like Toku shows are made very cheaply, very close to airing date. But man, it's not a great sign. You know,
a slightly better sign is that the main writer is Keiichi Hasegawa. Who also worked on Rage of Bahamut Genesis and SSSS Gridman and Dynazenon.
That's a very good
writer,
and he's been on some less good Kamen Riders and such before.
So it doesn't,
and also on some good Kamen Riders. So
guarantee anything.
I think, you know. And part of this goes back to what I was talking about before, right? Where like the
format,
the format is so restrictive that it kind of limits what you can do. And I think it's interesting to see if they can push back against that. This is like Kamen Rider and Tokusatsu in general is also a production famous for the heavy hand in which Toei executives have in it, because again, it is primarily a merchandising vehicle.
Right.
So, you know, writers tend to be on a pretty short leash. We'll see. Yeah. It's definitely an encouraging sign, but like I said, I didn't see too much of that in this first episode. So, jury's out.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on to some anime. Which we're still watching.
We watch that every now and then.
Sometimes.
Somehow.
Let's start with Jujutsu Kaisen, which you guys are
our good
watching.
old friend.
It's back.
Jujutsu Kaisen. It's back.
I kind of forgot. We haven't. I feel like we haven't talked about it in a while, but also I wasn't on the last episode.
Yeah, it was actually on break for a few weeks.
Yeah, so that is the reason. There was nothing to talk about.
If I recall, the last thing I heheard, we had ended the flashback.
Yes,
and we were back into like actual Jujutsu Kaisen now.
Yes, we are. This is it. The way this has been airing is interesting because, like, it almost feels like they basically intentionally want to split up the prologue and now what is properly season 2, as if they were like actually entirely different seasons of the anime. Like, they make this very clear because with the first episode, once we are out of the prologue, we have a new OP by the good Jujutsu Kaisen OP guy with a song composed by the guy who did the second Ranking of Kings OP.
Okay.
You know, they are very much making this very declarative statement.
Stylistically, it's back to the regular Jujutsu Kaisen, right?
Yes, that is very much the intention. And the first episode of this return very much feels that way. It very much feels like them being like, hey, we're back. it's the old dynamic, like the first of this episode. It's gonna be weird because I'm gonna keep calling it the first episode, but I think it's technically like episode 7 or something of this season. But but it opens with basically the Jujutsu Kaisen Chunin exams. Basically, they're like talking about how
who's getting promoted to what rank,
after to the next rank
after the big fight thing at the end of season 2 or season 1.
And we have this very entertaining segment where Toto, Mr. Boogie Woogie, and what's her name, Mei Mei, I believe, the weird ponytail lady, are like, I guess the way it works at Jujutsu Kaisen is that to get like a promotion to the next rank of sorcerer, you need to have a higher level sorcerer endorse
recommend
you. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we don't need to break down every joke, but there's some good character bits there because Toto steals the show every second he's on screen. Just a big, goofy,
Long
ball
head,
of charisma.
Right.
And then it kind of cuts to just the main trio hanging out like downtown, like Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara are just walking through the streets of Tokyo, and like it's implied they just finished up like some small errand, and like. They're all basically about to go like they're basically about to split up, right? Like, all right, well, so what are you doing? And Yuji's like, I'm going to see a movie, and Megumi's like, fuck that, I'm going home. And Nobara's like, in the classic way that friends hang out, it's like Nobara's like, well, I was gonna go shopping, but what movie are you gonna watch? And Yuji tells her it's this really fucking insane, horrible worm man mutant movie or whatever, Like and
the fourth in the series, but you don't need to see the first 3.
Yes. Like he's giving like the whole like fanboy breakdown of like, and you see like this fourth movie, unlike some of the prior entries, is actually more about like the metaphorical condition of the worm man and his relationship to like his humanity and society.
This is exactly the Jujutsu Kaisen content I wanted.
And it's great because it hard cuts to Nobara, and she's like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I'm going shopping.
Yeah.
It's
good shit.
It's really good. Look, man, the dynamic of these 3 it's so fucking good, and it makes you feel like, okay, we're back. And the big thing then that happens this episode is that a girl named Yuko shows up and runs into Nobara, and Yuko is a former classmate of Yuji's from, I think, middle school, and she is kind of shown, she is a girl who is, I guess, revealed to have always had a crush on Yuji, and there's this element of like, Yuko is the like, the trope they're playing with is that she is the ugly duck. She was the ugly duckling, the late bloomer, right? Like
she took her glasses off and let her hair down.
Not only did that happen, she like grew 2 feet taller. She is like by far like one of the tallest members of the cast.
They make a deep cut to fucking Yu Yu Hakusho here.
Yeah,
a really goofy way, because it's not even a more important character anymore.
Right, yeah. Like Nobara just makes like an offhand reference to like a one-off character from Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah.
And as we all remember, Yuji said that the type of women he likes are tall women with big asses. So
they made that very clear.
And Nobara remembers this, and so Nobara immediately clues into, oh, this is going to be funny. And so,
I love Nobara so much.
Takes her to it, takes her to like a family diner, and is like asking, she just wants the gossip, right? She's like, okay, so well, hey, tell me how you met Yuji. Like, what do you see in him, and all this stuff, right? And Yuko's flashback literally transports us back to the Toto like school flashback dimension, like hazy pinks and everything. But
his flashback of like
his like mind palace,
didn't actually happen, but like his
except this actually did happen.
Right,
so it's like it's but it's still funny because it is portrayed. It's like every time they flash back to like,
God, I forgot about that. That was so good. Yes.
Yeah, it turns out Jujutsu Kaisen can be really good when it wants to. And so the really like fun thing is like initially Nobara is like, man, this is great material. I can't wait to fuck with Yuji, with this stuff.
Yes, just just like loading her gun with this, right? Like,
except like
her bullets, yeah.
And the thing that works out is like Yuko is like so damn earnest. Like she is like the epitome of the like I don't know the, it's a little twee, right? But she is the like small bean character, except she happens to be like 6'2". Like her earnestness is like so like true to her heart that Nobara is like, all right, hold on, let me text Megumi real quick. And so texts Megumi again, the Sasuke of the trio, and is like, yo, come back here, I don't care what you're doing. Like, come to this cafe.
We have to talk about this.
And Megumi shows up and he's like, this better be good. And like see looks at Yuko, hears like one word out of her mouth, and he like hard cuts to him sitting down. Is like, oh, this is good. And eventually they text Yuji and tell him to like show up, right? Like, yo, you gotta come here right now. And he's like, I was just about to see the movie. And Nobara's like, it doesn't matter, this is more important. And so he shows up, and there's this great bit where Nobara's like, oh fuck, I super fucked up because Yuko looks totally different from that photo of her in middle school, and I didn't say anything in the text, so now Yuji's gonna be like, who the heck is this stranger? And then Yuji immediately goes, yeah, exactly. And then Yuji immediately goes, oh shit, sup Yuko?
Nice.
How you doing?
Good old Yuji.
And it's
that's
very...
the only way you should really ever end that kind of arc, to be honest.
Right. And it's just like, again, there's like no narrative stakes here. They don't fight a single demon. Though unfortunately the introduction of this like normie muggle like innocent girl is like, oh man,
they're probably going to kill her later.
She's going to die.
We've all read enough shonen to know this is exactly what you do with a character like this, which is a shame.
Only 1 week from retirement.
She is genuinely quite likable, but it kind of feels like that's what they're setting up here. But like the character dynamics of the three, just it shines so well in this episode, and it kind of makes the second of these two episodes a kind of a small microcosm of, I think, many of our like anxieties about Jujutsu Kaisen, because the plot gets rolling, and one of the like simmering B plots of the tournament arc is that, oh, there might be a traitor among us, right? That there might be a spy who is feeding information to the bad guys, right? And we find out that it's Mekamaru, the puppet guy.
And whose thing is that he like was born with a really sickly, frail body, but has high spirit power. And so what he does is he's laying in his life support bathtub and puppets a mechanical body around everywhere else.
Yeah. Right. And it turns out that the reason he is working with the baddies is because Mahito, the villain who can like sculpt your flesh, like all the weird like mutation stuff.
Right.
They've agreed to cut a deal where he will use his powers to basically fix Mekamaru's body.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And of course, both parties always intended to betray the other after this deal was closed, right? Like Mekamaru's plan was like, I'm going to draw them into my lair where all my puppets are, and I'm going to jump them as soon as I'm healed. And of course, Mahito is, the main bad guy of the story, so he was also like, I'm going to kill this dude.
Right.
And the thing about this fight is like, look, Mekamaru's a cool dude. He's got a robot body. It shoots lasers. But also, when you introduce a character like this whose plan is, I'm going to kill the main villain of this shonen franchise.
Right. Also doomed. Yes.
You kind of know how this fight's going to go, right?
Yeah.
And so it's revealed that the reason why Mekamaru is so confident that he can take Mahito is because he has a giant Evangelion-sized version of one of his puppets stored underneath his like base of operations.
Yes, the inevitable path of all shonen anime where they eventually devolve into the mecha show.
And as if the jobber energy could not get any higher, he reveals that he has been siphoning, his like overwhelming spirit power into this mech, and so it is holding 18 years worth of his spiritual energy to fuel it. And it's a really cool fight. Mappa is not even remotely like ashamed of this. They constantly reference both Evangelion and Gurren Lagann in this fight, like down to like the
a
shots.
lot of shot composition and stuff is ripped straight from stuff. Like that shot of the Evangelion jumping over like the cliff. And
yes, they do that exact shot. Yeah,
stuff like that.
They have it do the whole like
mouth opens and roars.
Yeah, screams into the air, and it's a really cool fight. I mean, it's it's a fucking giant robot shooting laser beams, and there's like an Atano Circus like segment that's like insanely well animated.
There's a really cool cut that got wrecked by TV standards. Where he's shooting these lasers, and like Mahito is running through the woods, constantly transmogrifying to different animals to like parkour through the trees.
And it's like barely visible because of the like seizure,
ghost scene,
right?
Rules.
I was referred to as the Pikachu effect, right?
Hey, that fight will probably look really good in the Blu-ray release.
Yeah, probably.
But it's a really, really good looking fight. Like even though Sung-Ho Park's not involved with this like production, you could tell Mappa is bringing it in a way they never did for Chainsaw Man. Like, it's really impressive. And yes, it is, like, blatantly homaging, a bunch of iconic mecha scenes, right? But, like, hey, if you're going to steal from the best, right? And it's great. And, like, I mean, the end of the fight is literally the end of the final fight against the Anti-Spyro and Gurren Lagann, where it is literally Mechamaru charging through a bunch of tendrils as its limbs get blasted off. And then the Mechamaru puppet opens and there's...
Right, and then it gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great shot.
Like... It's sick as hell! And then, Mechamaru dies because he's a fucking jobber B-plot character. Right. And, like, they really try to, like, make you feel bad because they imply that the blue-haired girl with a sword has a crush on Mechamaru. And, like...
she's never.
And when he finally gets back, he can finally be with her.
Yeah, right. Like his motivation for this fight is I'm gonna survive this. I'm gonna see her, and I'm finally gonna be able to hold her. And it's like, sorry, bro. Like you built your entire plan out of being thinking you were the one who was going to defeat the main villain of a shonen series.
Okay, I have a small sidetrack here. I have to mention.
Okay.
Completely unrelated, but also kind of related. There was a very good joke in Honkai Star Rail recently where you don't really need the context other than somebody made a joke how like going to talk to this person felt like they were going to have to talk to the big bad evil guy, and your chaotic main character garbage person cracks a joke of like, after this I'm going to go home. And I'm gonna marry my my childhood sweetheart, whatever. And all the characters are like, and all the characters just text back, "Please stay alive."
That's pretty good.
But
it was that kind of energy to it, right? And it's like
right. Yes, that's saying the inevitable, like what's gonna happen, right?
Right. And like the reason why, again, I say it is a microcosm of like some of Jujutsu Kaisen's problems is like not only is this fight extremely telegraphed. It looks great, but it is extremely telegraphed. But also, the character Mechamaru never stops referring to the idea that his win condition is he just needs to survive long enough to get the message out to Gojo. Like,
Gojo will come and save me.
Right. His whole plan is like
if I can't kill him, then as long as I get the message out to Gojo by causing
then Gojo will solve everything. Right.
Right.
And so it kind of turns this into the watching Piccolo and Krillin fight the Cybermen while waiting for Goku to get there. Problem, right? Of you kind of know how this fight's going to go because as good as it looks, there's no tension. And then the episode ends with the beginning of the next arc, which is the villains finally go public and launch their attack on downtown Tokyo on Halloween. And the plot, the
literally they just lock 5,000 people in a bubble and tell them all, call Satoru Gojo here.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
It's just
and
like,
so,
oh, okay. And so all the characters are standing outside of this bubble, and Gojo's here to save the day. Walks in, and it's like you already know that they're doing this to put Gojo in the bubble so that then they can attack everybody who's outside of the bubble,
right?
or
Because the
whatever.
only tension in this series exists is when Gojo is not within arm's reach, right? Because Gojo is the like unassailable problem solver of this story. The only tension is where is he in relation to the characters we are currently watching, right? The only tension about the Mechamaru fight is that Gojo wasn't there. The only tension about this upcoming arc is going to be, oh no, Gojo gets isolated from the rest of like the heroes. And it's just, yeah,
whenever Poochie isn't on screen, all the other characters should be asking, "Where's Poochie?"
Yeah, it kind of is that, and
problem
it
having
kinda,
like an invincible character, right?
right, and it's
Why
like,
aren't they here to solve this then?
like, you know, for all its faults of its modern day run, like one of the smartest things that My Hero Academia did with the character of All Might, who was that show's like Superman analog, is that the heroes exist in a world after All Might has been like permanently maimed and like cannot like draw upon his full powers anymore. He can, but only for like a couple minutes at a time. And so there is like real tension in like All Might is your get out of jail free card, but you only get that like once an arc, if even. And then after a certain point, you don't even get that anymore. You know, that card gets played for the last time. And the problem is Gojo doesn't have any of those limitations. His only limitation is his singular existence. That is his only weakness.
He can't be everywhere all at once. That's his only,
And
most of the time.
That's just,
yeah, it's not that interesting.
Yeah, it really isn't. And like my hope was like, oh well, maybe Jujutsu Kaisen will like up the tension by like maiming or crippling,
having some
Gojo.
way to like knock him down a peg, but that's probably not going to happen.
They're just probably going to lock him in a box, right?
Right,
yeah.
And then Iro tells me the manga currently in its current chapters is about a big Gojo fight. So like,
right, that's what I've heard.
Like, so spoilers, he doesn't go away. He's going to be a big part of this series.
I know, yeah.
Going forward.
Well,
and
I mean, I hate to be cynical about it, but this is when we talk about him being like the most popular character, right? The author, if the author is, you know, wants to give the people what they want, if that's what they want, then
I guess so, man.
We're just going to keep getting more Gojo, right? So
yeah, and it's a shame because again, like that first episode, like was such a feel good like return to form, like Iro and I were like legitimately like, yeah, right, yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen, yeah, it's good,
it's good. If we ever get
we're not crazy,
when it's about
right?
the main trio that we like, yeah.
I think I see what you're saying with that sort of being encapsulating all the good and bad, right? Like in 2 episodes, was it? But yeah, it's like, main cast is great, chemistry is great, a lot of fun, the fights look awesome, but the actual plot is either very unoriginal or Gojo ruins everything. Because
it kind of is,
yeah. So, I mean, that's sort of the downside, and you know, I thought the good outweighed the bad in season 1 to where I was enjoying it enough. But I don't know if they're gonna just like keep leaning on Gojo because everybody loves him. That does really start to wear on you after a while.
No,
right?
Frankly, it doesn't bode well for Jujutsu Kaisen, at least for me, in the long run.
I don't think in season 1 his presence was that bad. As far as like,
he shows up like one time, right? Or like he beats the bad guy like one time or something,
right? But until he arrived, it still felt like there was like some kind of tension or something. And I guess
that was the plot. There was like, we put up the barrier that locks him out,
right?
And he's like, well, I'll have to stand here and like break this for however long, and who knows how many people will die in that time,
right? So like, and it was still kind of,
we're kind of just rehashing that in the opposite direction,
right? It was still kind of fresh at that point too, right? But after you do it the second, third, fourth time or whatever, then it starts to get
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll see what you guys think of the rest of the season before I waste my time on. As it is, like if I were to watch it, I'd probably just skip the flashback and just jump into the.
Yeah,
it sounds like there's no connection whatsoever.
You don't need it.
Yeah. Like that should have just been like a movie or something, right? Like separate movie or whatever. Yeah.
Probably. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, that's Jujutsu Kaisen. Speaking of,
let's move on to another something else that disappointed me.
Beginning to sense a theme here.
Let's talk about Undead Murder Farce or Undead Girl Murder Farce, whatever we're calling it. All right.
Start of a new arc.
So I knew this show was not going to stay public domain character battle royale. That's fine. I was at peace with that, even though that was the most fun we were having in the last arc.
Yes,
unquestionably.
I guess it's just disappointing seeing it go back to exactly what it was in the previous arc, where it's like this really dull, and in some ways I'm finding this one even less interesting. I
think it's because the conclusion is more obvious here than it was previously.
God, I really hope it's not. I mean, I feel like I mean the end of the latest episode is like, I mean, it's so anticlimactic that I'm like, surely there's an 11-hour twist here, right?
I'm like, I keep thinking, it's like I'm overthinking the show because I am willing to I assume it's going to pull some switcheroos, and then it's like, oh no, it's this weirdo who lives on the outskirts of town is the world, and I'm like, wait, is that it?
Yeah,
is that it?
Just to clarify for the listeners what we're talking about, because I think we've kind of talked about this separately, but it's gone back to the murder mystery format, right? Where we spend 2 episodes gathering clues and talking to people, and by the end, it's. I mean, this one was a lot more obvious, I think, what was going on.
Right, yeah. Just to give some context, right? The case this week is that they're in the mountains on their way to trying to find the Forest of Fangs,
village.
The werewolf town, Barkerville.
Yeah.
And they kind of run into a isolated small German village that has been beset by werewolf problems, right? That young girls and women are being abducted and then found later, dead and brutalized.
And
it's up to our trio to solve the case. And it's wow, wouldn't you know, it's a small town with a dark secret, and
gosh,
people, the things may not be as they seem in this small town, and
there was a dark event in their recent history which nobody talks about, but cast a shadow over the town, etc.
And it's like, there are aspects of this. I actually was not that down on the first episode of this arc because I was like, yeah, okay, fine, werewolf murder mystery.
We were still riding high at that point, I think.
I think
the last
and then the introduction of a cowboy, and I was like, hell yeah, all right, let's see where this goes. And
this could not even be saved by what was her name?
Alice Rapid Shot.
Alice Rapid Shot.
Yes,
the blonde cowboy girl who's
the 4'10" cowboy girl, cowgirl. Yes, with the dual revolvers. 6 shots more than enough to kill anything that moves.
I can't remember her partner's name. Kyle something.
Kyle Chaintail.
Yes, the names are good, but
we've not seen his weapon yet.
Much.
But I bet I can guess what it's going to be.
I mean, the names. I mean, look.
Yes,
it was Reynold, Stingheart, and Fatima Double Dart, and turns out,
yes,
those were pretty descriptive.
I will highlight. There's a bunch of weird faux film stuff in these episodes. They do some split diopter shots for seemingly no reason other than to make it seem like a film.
Oh, the director's working so hard on this.
Oh, I know.
Trying to save this thing, right. And it's just
split diopter. You might notice since those episodes, there's a few shots where it's there's a weird blur in the center of the screen, and that's imitating a specific type of lens that is bifurcated to keep both sides of the shot in focus at different depths, which in animation you can just keep. You don't have to.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like depth of field is not a problem when nothing you are depicting is real.
But to make it appear more like cinema, they're including this thing.
I mean, in many ways,
and interesting, I guess.
It is probably the strongest aspect of these episodes is like, you know, these two episodes of Undead Murder Farce are probably what I would call cinematic in a good way. You know, like it is leveraging like an understanding of a different medium and then applying those to, you know, the medium they are actually working in a way that like feels intellectual. Yeah, it feels interesting, and but also not like overly like.
It's not like we're making this anime into a movie.
Right. It's not being a Chainsaw Man or
yes.
And the thing is that, like, for this,
I don't want to keep saying Chainsaw Man, but yes, that's being the example of
like I would say, and the reason why I feel like it kind of works for these two episodes is like because it is leaning, you know, again, I was hoping it was doing this so that it would subvert it later. Turns out maybe it's just playing it straight. But the fact that it was leaning almost into that, like, you know, 90s VHS monster movie vibe, you know, like, you know, our heroes arrive in a mysterious town beset by tragedy, and it's like, I don't know. I really dug a lot of the directing choices in these two episodes. It's just a shame it seems to be in service of
really.
I really hope there's a weird twist here. Yeah. Like because like nothing about these episodes, like, you know, there's the part at the end where Shizuku like
falls into the waterfall,
and it's like she's fine.
Yeah.
Like, shut up.
She's fine. She's gonna die just like Professor Moriarty did.
Yeah, you know, like,
and even if she isn't, like, she's not an unlikable character, but she's kind of a one-note joke, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, she has her role in the chemistry of the main group, but yes, it's like one specific thing she does, right? I think so. My only hope here is that, you know, that we got the mystery part kind of out of the way at this point, right? Which that was the part that was really dragging for me, where we drag out 2 whole episodes of, you know, people interrogating people, so much talking, and like none of it's terribly interesting. You all know where it's going, right? And then the end game, though, is still to get to this like werewolf village or something, and we know Moriarty and his squad is headed there, right? So are we gonna get back to the public domain battle royale by the end of this? I mean, I hope so. There's only like a couple episodes left at this point, right? So
I feel like that if you want this to end with some sort of climactic encounter, then that's the thing that will most likely happen. But also,
and
I don't know, man.
They've proven they can do that in a fun way in the last arc, right? So like, I think there's still potential for this to end with a bang, but it was just really just drained the life out of me when when we went from, you know, the crazy things happening in the last arc to, you know, back to, you know, 2 full episodes of just talking about.
Let me explain every detail about this room.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, and I wouldn't mind the talking if it were interesting or revealing, you know, but like I said, the mystery here is not really much of a mystery. And there's not, like, at least in the previous episode we had like the vampire vibe to keep us going. Here it's just kind of, it's a werewolf story among a like bunch of Central European villagers, and kind of we've not only seen this before, we've seen like parodies, spins, reconstructions, deconstructions of this a million times.
I think a big element of why it's not working is like, you know, so obviously I think a big aspect of like why the previous arc works so well, right, is because I do genuinely think that our main trio have a pretty entertaining character dynamic. Like, I feel like, you know, the 3 work pretty well as a cohesive like narrative unit, and so the fun of the previous arc is getting to see that unit bounce off of those other also larger than life characters, right?
Right.
Like, how do the three deal with Lupin? How do the three deal with Sherlock Holmes, right? And
right.
there's something there to work with, right? There's a fun, you can get a fun verbal back and forth, right? Like, half the fun of, like, Aya hiding in the safe, right, is like, you know, headbutting Arsène Lupin of all people, right? It's
right.
like,
Yeah.
you know, that is the fun of it, right? And I feel like the problem here is, like, once again, it is back to just these three, and they don't really have anyone interesting to bounce off of in this town, right? Like, every person in this town is kind of just following the same, like, monster mystery, like, archetypes, right? Like the you know, the reclusive artist who lives on the edge of town, you know, the bitter old man hiding a secret, you know, and it's like, I mean, like, okay,
and it doesn't seem like it's using that for any, like, that's not using that as a vector to do anything different, is the thing, right?
Exactly.
It's just that stuff.
And so it's like, I get that, like, okay, you probably can't just write your generic villager to be as big of a character as Sherlock Holmes, but yeah, I don't know. I think something
do something with these cliches, right? Like,
and it's like, I don't want it to be gimmicky, but maybe you should always have some kind of Sherlock Holmes or other character in every arc, right? Like, if you're gonna, like, you know, dump all your toys into the table on one arc and then not use them in the others, it's like, maybe there should always be somebody like that to bounce off of and spread that out. And that's, I mean, you kind of, like I said, it kind of run the risk of being, like, sort of gimmicky with that, I guess, but also that was the most fun we were having with the show. So
I think even with the vampire stuff, like, while it was somewhat cliche vampire stuff, it had the twist of, like, instead of somebody's been killed and we're finding out it's a vampire, it's one of the vampires has been killed and we're calling them in to find who killed them, right?
Right.
So, like, there was an inherent twist on that already, and it doesn't seem like there's one of those in this werewolf thing.
Like, for
and to be clear, if it turns out the little girl is a werewolf, that doesn't count as a twist because it's extremely heavily telegraphed.
Like,
yes.
Like, for better or worse, the thing the vampire arc does do is it does introduce the interesting wrinkle of, like, the world's politics, right? Which, again, is not a huge element of this show, but, like, the fact that it reveals to us, oh, vampires are a nominally known part of society, right? Like, that people are aware of them. Like, people know who these vampires are. They have to field interviews. They call these vampires call the police. So, like, even though the mystery itself ended up being, you know, fairly straightforward, there was still that element of, like, oh, what an interesting take on, like, a lot of these familiar
elements. And it's from the perspective of, you know, quote unquote, one of the good ones, right? So, like, you know,
it's the werewolf thing, like, other than the part where, like, the villagers acknowledge the existence of werewolves, like, there's not really any of that fun, like, interplay anymore, right? Like, it's just playing the werewolf stuff totally straight. Like, the moment, like, they started talking about werewolves, I was like, wait, like, are we gonna get, like, good werewolves again too? Are there also, like the vampires, are there werewolves who have signed the accords or whatever? Like, it doesn't seem like that's happening, so where is the twist?
One final negative thing, the fight at the end with the gold werewolf looked really bad. And it's not like not like the action has been amazing in this show, but it's been pretty competent, right? Like, and I feel like they've made some fun choices with some of the fights. This one was just like, felt like they ran out of time, money, whatever.
Yeah, you got Shizuku out here running like a Devilman Crybaby character.
There were definitely a few shots there where I was like, oh, look, it's a man in a furry wolf costume.
Yeah,
so...
See, but now I'm like, not to defend it necessarily, but it's like, how much of this is now I'm like, how much of that is intentional and just isn't working properly because of your weird film stuff, right? Like,
I think some of that was definitely either time or budget constraints. But I mean, that's not like a huge deal in this show, but we've seen them do better, which I guess is yeah. So, and especially if we are headed towards some kind of showdown, I'm sure there are more fights to come once they run into the. I don't remember the name of Moriarty's team. Banquet, yes. It was like some random word that didn't have any connection to anything. So I'm just like, I don't remember what it was. But yeah, I said, I think there's still potential for the last couple episodes, but there's been enough up and down in this show that it's kind of, I feel like it's hard to make like a very clear recommendation to watch it at this point. But
yeah, I mean, I almost feel bad that we pushed it as hard as we did to Artemis last episode because we were riding high on that arc.
Yeah, she ran into like the peak of the show, right?
Yeah, and now we exist in this very weird place of like, oh, is it that you don't recommend Undead Murder Farce? Is that you recommend watching episodes 5 through 9?
The thing is, those episodes were really good. Like,
they were
genuinely great. A very weird one.
Those 4 or 5 good episodes is enough. I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, the ending might be good, and who knows, I know for me, a good ending always goes a long way for my final opinions of the series.
Yes.
So we'll see. All right. Let's talk about the Masterful Cat is depressed again today.
Yeah, the supposedly best show of the season.
Yeah. I have to say, even this one has kind of dragged a bit for me.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no.
It hasn't really done anything bad. It's kind of run a little out of steam. I mean, the premise will only take you so far unless you keep pushing the boundaries, and they are not doing that. It's a lot of, girl goes to work and cat gets exasperated and not really a whole lot more going on. I will say the main girl has become more and more relatable, I think, as they start leaning into the fact that because she is supported by her amazing masterful cat who runs her life outside of work, while she is at work, she does a great job, and everyone looks at her as their cool, reliable senpai who has their life together and everything's going great, and she's just an amazing, perfect person. When in reality, at home she is a just complete slob disaster person, which I don't know. I personally find that relatable sometimes, but the they have a few incidents where like they all go out drinking for work, and then the next day, thanks to the Masterful Cat's elaborate hangover recovery routine, she's in pretty good shape, while everyone else is just dragging in the morning. They're like, man, she can even handle her liquor, like she's unstoppable.
What is the Masterful Cat's hangover cure?
It was a lot. I don't remember it all, to be honest. There was he gave her some like water and bland miso soup. He had the cold compress on the head while she was sleeping or something, and Ramune candy.
Sure.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you guys have ever had Ramune candy, but it actually kind of makes sense to me, like as far as maybe settling your stomach or whatever. But
sure. Is it like fizzy or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like I'm trying to think the closest candy. It's very chalky, like
okay,
like kind of like a Smartie or something. Do you guys know what those
Love
are?
Hearts a thing over there?
Yeah, maybe a little crunchier than a Love Heart. Yeah, like a Smartie. Do you guys know what those are?
Yeah.
Of course.
I think we might be talking about different things though, because a Love Heart is a tablet basically here. So
okay,
I'm thinking of the one fizzy tablets.
Okay, the Love Hearts I'm thinking of are the ones that have like the words on them. Is that? But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those are but that's kind of chalky.
It's like sugar powder compressed into a tablet.
Yeah. Right. Yep. So anyway, the latest episode, they have the also I feel relatable because this just came up for me recently. Was the they do a biannual company trip.
Oh boy.
And she's like, I don't want to go on this thing. This also came up for me recently because we're having one next year, and I'm like, oh god, I kind of have to go, and like, it's quote unquote optional, but it's not really optional, kind of thing.
Like if you don't the question always is, if you don't go, do you get that as time off, or are you expected to be in the office if you don't go, right? And
oh no, you're definitely expected to work if you don't go. Yeah.
See, well,
so it's like, do I? But see, I work from home, so I don't care if I have to. So,
and like, if everybody else is on the trip, then your working day is like just you alone in the office, which
yeah, and I don't have to travel, and I don't have to travel to Arizona. So anyway, yeah. So she's
all
like,
right, Joe, I got a strategy for you. All right. You just got to catch COVID like a week before this trip.
I'm one of the few people left that has never had COVID. I don't want to start now.
There's never a better time to start, I guess.
He's a Highlander.
Look,
Iro and I are going to have to fight to the death at some point.
It's really
there
easy,
can be only one.
You just need to go to a local anime convention or fighting game tournament a week before your trip.
Okay,
and
okay.
You'll probably catch it.
Along with a bunch of other stuff as well.
Yeah, unfortunately the trip's in May, which I think is before a lot of conventions. But anyway, yeah, so they kind of play off of that because she's like, I don't want to go because her life is so good at home because her cat takes care of her, and she's like, oh, but can I leave the cat home for a couple days by himself? And she goes she's like really stressing about this and comes home and tells him that she's going to be gone for a few days. And he's just like, peace. I'm going to have the house
finally,
to myself.
Thank God. Yeah.
And then as he's like preparing her bags and stuff to go, she's like, wait, I'm worried about the cat being home alone. Can I survive 3 days without him?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It only reinforces to her workmates that she has her life together, because like every time something bad goes wrong, like somebody like scrapes their ankle or something, she's like has all the stuff that he packed, like he packed band-aids and everything, so she's like prepared for everything, and they're like, wow, senpai is amazing. And
stolen valor.
Yeah.
What if this show kind of like takes a really dark twist and turns into like a show about how she's completely codependent on her amazingly competent cat?
I mean, that's what they're doing, but for laughs,
right?
Basically, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's after she's gone for a day or two, he does realize he misses her, because this is still a very sweet show, and she calls him to check on him, and he like. She does that normally, but this time he actually picks up the phone so she can hear him purring. It's very sweet. And it all works out, but it's, like I said, I kind of wish they would push the boundaries a little more into like, I don't know, even like when they had the episode where they went to the aquarium, like that's not like a wild, crazy thing, but it's also like, it felt like it was stretching the
boundaries of the show,
the scope of what we're dealing with here, and they haven't really done it. So
at some point, it's just the same joke over and over, and it's like you need them to take that joke and spin in different ways, right?
Yeah, and so I'm still enjoying it, but it just I wish it would go to take something to the next level here, and it's just not getting there. But overall, it's still like a positive experience. I don't have anything really bad to say about it, unlike some of the other shows that I dropped and everything. So,
has there been any further Gohan's insanity, or have they mostly dialed that back now?
Nothing that we haven't experienced already. As I've said before, there's always the one shot per episode of some kind of spinning camera or something. There was a very brief fight scene where there was some neighborhood stalker guy that the main girl takes down, because I guess she knows judo for some reason,
of course,
sure. And they over animated the like 3 seconds that she like flips the guy over her shoulder, so
right.
There's still like the one shot per episode, but they haven't done any like really wild unexpected things with it. So, It's still pretty good. It's still probably my favorite show, just by process of elimination.
Right.
But since I'm only watching
Tell you
two
what you
new
can
shows,
get, I guess.
there's only 2 new shows left that I'm still watching. It's the one that I don't have any. It's all positives for the most part. But yeah.
All right.
Well. I just
me laughing, looking over at the show notes. Yeah,
I mean, you guys have had like literally nothing to say about this, but we got nothing else to talk about this season.
On
but you are still watching
Noir.
Yes, you are still watching Synduality Noir. Has anything interesting happened?
They devoted a whole ass episode to showing you the playable character, the main character.
No, wait. Yes, they do that, but Iro, we need to talk about the first episode.
What was before that? I don't even fucking remember.
It's a beach episode.
Oh, right.
So we get our obligatory girls go to the beach episode, right?
I feel like you don't see those that much these days. Either that, or I'm just not watching those shows anymore. But
right,
yeah.
And this is the thing that's so confusing about this is because like the way anime is produced, you couldn't have made this episode at the last minute, right? Like this is not like some like desperation maneuver of like quick deploy the beach episode, but like. This episode felt like such a blatant last-ditch effort to make us like any of the characters. Like, please, look, they're in bikinis, look at the titties, please like these characters. And it's like,
oh, look, she's so embarrassed about
like
seeing the boy she likes.
Maybe the only reason I want to bring it up is because it gives us an excuse to talk about the one and only good, like, beach episode in the history of anime, which is the one from Dynazenon. Which has the fucking just
technically a pool episode, but
this is a pool episode too.
Yes, sure. This is also a pool episode. In fact,
I
get what you mean.
I'm gonna push back on that slightly, and God, what was the name of that show?
Are you gonna talk about that one that's like
last period?
Last period. I knew it.
That is actually the greatest beach episode of all time.
Watch a game, right?
Fair enough.
where sort of, it's been a while since we talked about it. They'd use their beach episode to make a statement about protesting Japanese remilitarization and freedom of speech.
Oh, great! Yeah,
a great
So that's to me is still the greatest beach episode of all time. But yes, Dynazenon also very good.
Just shout outs to the classic trigger gag of just having the lifeguard just hold on the frame of the lifeguard for a little too long.
I'll
also shout out the pool episode in the Fate spinoff where they're cooking.
There's some fun ones when they play with the concept. Yeah,
that one's fun.
The Azumanga Daioh Beach arc it gives us the legendary knife Osaka scene.
That is true.
This is all to say that
the point is as we list out multiple
as we list out multiple beach/pool episodes where it was used for some really fun gags or character development by exploring the main character's PTSD.
Right.
Synduality Noir doesn't do any of that shit.
Right, because here's the thing. At its core, what these episodes actually are, other than the fan service, other than the fan service, what these episodes functionally exist to do narratively is to either act as a tension release valve or as a scenario intentionally designed to set up slice of life style situations for these characters, right? Which both can have legitimately great uses in fiction, right? I know this sounds like me saying, well, actually, you see, the boob window symbolizes her character. There is an element of that, but in all realness, right? You can use a beach pool episode because here's the thing, all right? Okay. Obviously, they're doing this because it's, anime has a bunch of hot girls. That's why we do pool episodes, right? But here's the thing. Normal people go to the beach as well and do normal beach things, right? And so the appeal can often be seeing these characters who are often, I don't know, shooting laser beams or piloting mechs, just hanging out, chilling, straight chilling.
Circumstances, yeah.
Yes, having a break.
I mean, that is why each episode still exists in less fan servicey shows and genres as well.
And so, in theory, that's kind of like what this episode is meant to be. It's like, see, look, the characters are hanging out when they don't have to fight giant robots or monsters. Except, like, we don't like any of the characters, and none of the characters have any depth whatsoever. You know, it's like, they gather, like, every major member of the female, like, every major female character in the cast. And, you know, I guess the theory is to have them bounce off each other because some of them have never met. So they do the thing of like, oh, hey, how do you know, so-and-so? It's like, oh, it's because I tried to fuck him over in a job last, like in a previous episode.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, it doesn't work because, again, these characters, there's nothing. Also, like, all the conversations these girls have eventually circle back to, like, ooh, are you going to confess to Kanata, the extremely boring protagonist of this show? And it's like,
Are there any other male characters? Oh, he has the friend, right?
His friend, like the perverted bro friend, who actually does show up. In fact, the premise of the episode is that he got tickets to this water park, and he gave them to Kanata and all of his female friends, except Tokyo didn't go. And it's like, man, like why isn't Tokyo here? And then the joke turns out
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
The joke is that Tokyo is in fact there, but in fact, what Tokyo is doing is he has become the agent / manager for the like idol girl who also like did not go on the trip, and she has started doing tours at this water park.
So he's running Tokyo
is taking a cut of the profits.
That's pretty good.
It's like the one okay joke in this whole like episode.
I thought you were going to be like he was like spying on the girls or something, and it's like that's a better.
I mean, our assumption was that he was hungover. I mean, again, the man literally wakes up, and the first thing he thinks of after getting dressed is, I should go to the bar.
That's a better way to do it while preserving his dirtbag image, right? So,
yes, exactly. Yeah. But yeah. So that episode sucked. Nothing to it. Like, really, no substance at all. Like, the barest thing I could say about this episode is, like, there's, like, a conversation that, like, Kanata's childhood friend who has a crush on him has with her older sister.
Oh, right, yeah. It's like one weirdly good bit of writing, and then they ditch it. Like, it doesn't matter, yeah.
Because basically... Oh, go ahead, Jill.
No, go ahead, finish first. And then
all right, so it's like basically like the childhood friend is like your classic tsundere childhood friend who's like, but Baka, I don't like you or anything, right? And she has this moment of introspection where she's like, man, I'm kind of annoying, aren't I? Like,
wow.
I'm kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. Like, why would I ever be, like, worthy of love or affection?
Damn.
So she's saying all of this to her older sister, who is, like, the, like...
hard-drinking, like, mega mechanic lady, right?
Archetype, right? The alcoholic One-san, kind of a dirtbag, like...
The cool one.
Yep.
Older sister, she is, drinking buddies with Tokyo, right? And she basically says, I mean, look at me, and you don't hate me, do you? And, little sister's like, of course I don't. And so, it's just a little message of like, hey, look, like, nobody's perfect, right? We all have our flaws, right. And hey, look, sometimes we could even annoy those around us that care about us, but that is kind of just, that is the human condition.
Yeah.
And then the episode ends with a perverted misunderstanding because the android girl is like, beep boop, I heard you wanted to, like, what was it?
Pounce, like, do battle with
pounce on Kanata. Do you intend to ambush him? And it's like, ha 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 ha. What a funny misunderstanding. And it's like, oh, right, yeah, this show is total fucking dog shit. Anyways, so the second of these two episodes, in some ways, is an even bigger fuck up than the first.
Wow.
Because, okay, now, let me ask you all, Synduality Noir is part of the multimedia Synduality project, right? It is meant to be an anime, a game, I don't know what else, maybe a live-action drama, a radio drama, who the fuck else knows, right? It's a classic Japanese multimedia project.
Yep.
And so, what is the purpose of a multimedia project? It is to make you watch one or engage with one piece of that media and have that media encourage you to pursue other, like, pieces of media in that franchise.
Yeah,
the intended
funnel you
goal,
to the part that makes money.
Yes.
I'm never gonna watch Arcane. All you people want me to watch Arcane. Sorry. But yes, continue.
What? Oh, yes, the
Yes.
show. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, that is the point. Is it may not work on you, but it will work on somebody. Right?
It is the intended purpose of it as a product.
Yes. And so the intended purpose of Synduality Noir is, in theory, to make you go, "Wow, what a good time I had with that anime. What else is there to Synduality? Oh, there's a video game coming out on the PlayStation 4 and 5 consoles, as well as the Steam
coming
store.
soon with no announced date."
Yes, with no announced date. Yes, the game seems to be in development hell. So the latest episode has them introduce the protagonist from the game.
Hooray.
He sucks.
Wait,
synergy.
You already had one like bland self-insert protagonist.
Okay,
Why
what
do
if you had another one? What if you had another bland self-insert protagonist, but instead of the overly self-effacing, "Oh, I'm so weak, I can't believe I needed you all to help me" type of character, instead he's the silent, brooding type of character, who doesn't want any friends. I'm not here to make friends.
Literally that. I'm not here to make friends. Like,
I'm here to get business done, and the business is sucking.
and so this whole episode is about Kanata meeting the other dude whose name I can't even remember, who was referred to as like the legendary drifter, the legendary fighter. He is like the
whatever they're going to call you in the game,
because he's rain tight. The asteroid doesn't affect him.
Right? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He has Doom's level 4 or whatever.
So
is his name literally Rain's tight?
No.
I was going to say, because that's a Gundam tier name.
That would be good, but no, that's his affliction. But what were we going to say, Joel?
So they have one type of bad protagonist, and they've brought in a worse version of that protagonist.
Yeah.
It is comical.
It sucks. Like, the whole episode is just sucking this dude's dick. Like, every other sidekick is like, wow, he truly is the greatest mech pilot that ever lived. What a cool guy. I would love to live a day in the life of his adventures. I can scarcely imagine what type of exciting adventures he goes on compared to the rest of us. And
so this episode is an advert. Even more of an advert than usual.
But a bad one, because now I am the one and only person in this podcast who may have purchased this video game, am less incentivized to play that video game now, if that's what the protagonist is like.
I mean, it is like a real ass video game and not a gacha game, right?
Because it's not out, so who knows?
But it has a page on the Steam store, so I assume it's going to be released as a retail product eventually.
I mean, the sad truth is that being a real ass video game does not preclude you from being a gacha game.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
And and it's such a weird, I'm not going to say this was a layup. I'm not going to say this would have been easy, but if you had introduced the protagonist of the video game and they were even remotely likable, they would smell like a rose in comparison to Kanata, the protagonist of the anime.
Right.
The protagonist of the game didn't even need to be good. He just needed to be okay, and I would have gone, yeah, I can put up with that.
Yeah. And so this
I mean, I bet you when that game comes out, the pilot, the player character will be a blank slate, which is why they gave him no personality.
Yeah, and okay, this set off my spider senses watching this episode, because there's a gag where characters are going shopping, and his game main character's robot girl is buying up all the soy sauce at the store
because he's salty.
No, I bet you, Eddie, that dude's thing is he's from modern day Japan and got frozen or something, and he somehow isekai'd to this point in time.
Oh, and that's why he
wants the classic Japanese foods.
We have it on tape.
Feel it. I feel the waves, right?
I feel like there's only a 50% chance that game will come out anyway.
I mean, yeah.
So
I was gonna say, like, is he now part of the show, or is he just a cameo?
No, it kind of felt like a one-off. Like, I don't think he's gonna show up again. But the one like piece of like information we have to work with that lends credence to Eero's theory is that his nom de guerre is the ruin of Amasia. And
God, I forgot about that.
The synopsis of the video game is that humans build an underground haven named Amasia where you will play as a drifter. And so I guess, like...
So the story of the video game is you fuck up your home? Like,
I guess. I don't know. Like, the fact that he's called the ruin of Amasia in the TV show is like, are we doing a Sakura Wars thing again of the anime man. Is technically a sequel to the game?
Right. The game that has not come out. Like,
the game that has not come out!
Right. Because at least for Sakura Wars, like, that game was out in Japan for a while. Like,
yeah.
But
more like a Tactopus Destiny situation.
And it's just... But no, even there, because that anime was a prequel to the game, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah. Like, this...
It's just so bizarre, right?
Dude, multimedia projects are fucked. I don't know why I don't know why Japanese companies continue to do it. It doesn't seem like it ever works.
Because,
like can any of you name a successful multimedia like project?
Pokemon.
Kamen Rider.
Love Live.
The thing is, Pokemon is like the most profitable franchise in the universe.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of
the platonic ideal.
And like
Pokemon predates the
right.
type of multimedia
what I'm
project
saying is
we're
like
talking about now, but yes,
yeah, and it sort of arose organically. But I think like it is what they're chasing, right?
It's what every multimedia project chases.
You want
which is so ubiquitous you can do anything with it. And
exactly, and it's like they just are shooting anything they can at the wall and trying to make it stick. They try to do like fucking Scarlet Nexus or whatever, you know.
God, I forgot that was technically also a multimedia project.
My example was Love Live because they also had the.
That's true too.
The anime was tremendously successful. The rhythm game was tremendously successful.
Yeah,
there's concerts and stuff. You know that's
Love Live was like building off the shoulders of an established genre already. If that makes sense. Like,
I guess if we're talking like non-idol stuff. That's a harder question.
Idol stuff by its very nature is kind of like a deeply cynical
because like prior to Love Live, you had Idol Master, and but
I mean, I guess like does Bandai Namco just want a non-Gundam mech thing?
I think that's all it is.
That they can push stuff behind. Yes. Because
Sunrise have been making original mech shows for decades.
I know, and like, none of them have taken off except like
they never work,
right? Like Code Geass is like the only one I can think of.
Yes.
And it's like there's Kokai Senki, like
yeah.
I mean, part of the problem is that it's kind of difficult to make something a Gundam-sized success because the market is just so much more saturated than it used to be, right? Like, Gundam was a success partially because it was the first thing which did some of the specific things I did, and also there were like 7 mech shows in total. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean, right? Like,
yes.
Whereas this is just like this. The way you're making this sound is A, it's incredibly unimaginative, and as a result of that, B, it feels like the thing that I could turn over a stone and find wherever.
Right, and I think that is like Synduality's like greatest failing is like it is so intensely designed by committee. It feels like this series, this franchise is not allowed to have any like distinctive voice because any distinctive voice might then make like the characters less broadly appealing, right?
It is a product before it is a story.
Yeah. And I feel like this is I don't want to say like this is like this is not unique. But I feel like when you have franchises like this that go for the angle of make the character as bland as possible to make them as appealing to as many like demographics as possible,
it doesn't always work. Yeah,
it always strikes to me of like, oh, this was developed by some like decrepit boomer ass Japanese businessman, like some dude in his like fucking 70s being like, what are the kids like these days, you know? And just
reminds me of that documentary about the making of original Gundam where they were like, why does Amuro look so weird? Why does he look like a loser? Why isn't he more, broadly appealing?
Why doesn't he die in magma?
Yeah.
Right. Why doesn't he know karate like all proper Japanese protagonists are supposed to know? And I think that's kind of... And I think it's a very interesting like phenomenon because like, okay, this is a weird like tangential connection, right? But like, okay, hear me out. Why do so many people weirdly resonate with Chainsaw Man? At least the manga.
Yeah,
and a lot of that is its protagonist Denji, who is this like dirt poor, craven, perverse dirtbag. And you might, and I think it might be very easy from an outside perspective to look at that character and go, like, oh, what a like weird character. I couldn't see anybody like empathizing with him. He has no broad appeal, right? But I think in a weird way, what makes a character like Denji more appealing than the like aforementioned like blank slate protagonists is like he has extremely specific tangential desires.
This is the thing about characters is like the more specificity you can give to a character, then paradoxically the more relatable they are to people. Because
also,
you can take these.
Benji has extremely strong combination of kicked puppy and I can fix him energy.
A little bit of that, yeah.
Like the more specific a character is, like you can take these highly specific things, and then people can relate those things to themselves,
to their own experiences, right? Because look, most of us have not like lived in such abject poverty that we eat moldy food off the ground like a dog. I hope most of us have not lived in such dire circumstances, but most of us know the feeling of like looking in your wallet and going, ah, shit, man, I can't afford this.
Right. Like, it's like, yeah, you can take these feelings that are specific to the human experience in certain ways, but then dial them up to cartoonish levels. Right. But then that still makes it more relatable on like a deep level than just this is a guy he likes the thing that the show is about, and also he likes girls, but he's not horny for girls because that would be bad.
I think that this kind of character is. You have to approach them from a different mindset, right? It's not who will this character appeal to, it's what is the least number of people we can offend, because the people that they are appealing to are inevitably reactionary, like idiots who are locked in their parents' basement, but like these people are looking for a reason to be outraged, and by filing off all the sharp edges on your character, you run minimal risk,
I guess,
of that. And that's incredibly cynical approach.
I just also think about like, I don't know, the popularity of say isekai, and then the amount of people who will completely unironically write on message boards or whatever, like, can anybody recommend like a thing that has like a super cool badass overpowered protagonist, please? It's like this is the only thing I want to look at.
Yeah, I mean that's I feel like that's starting to get into slightly different territory, but it's kind of the same. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know, and I would just throw in there's the factor of like a lot of times these characters are meant to be in video games where they're supposed to be. It's not that you're supposed to like the character; you're supposed to be the character, and you have options. You have options to express yourself in the game. That they're not going to translate in the anime, right?
You know what? And I think it's better in games that they allow you to express yourself within a highly specific framework of what the character is.
Yes, well, then that gets into that. But I think that's part of how we end up in this place to begin with. Of it's not meant to be in a narrative where the character is actually where the viewer is not deciding what the character says, right?
Look, all I'm saying is, if you want to write a blank slate protagonist, you should write it like the one in Honkai Star Rail.
Yes. If we want to bring it circle back around, the fact that the Honkai Star Rail protagonist is this chaotic garbage person, and you have some
dirtbag.
Yeah, you have some control over how she expresses that, but generally, she's
Which is all to say,
So go ahead, Iro.
Yes, this is all to say, Synduality Noir is so bad that it has made us go into base storytelling blocks to show how it's doing it wrong, right?
Well, that's the interesting conversation. That's the interesting part of that's the interesting part of the conversation here.
This is the conversation we have to have, because otherwise the Synduality Noir section is 2 minutes long.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All right.
So anyway,
yeah,
that's pretty much it for the new shows. I did want to mention, I've been hitting the backlog. Last time I talked about my attempt to watch Mad Lax. I have not gotten back to that.
Yeah, how did that go?
I haven't watched any more of it because I switched over to finally watching Vinland Saga. I figured I would make better use of my time.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you guys have gone into detail about it over the years, so I don't have to start rehashing everything. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with anything you guys have said yet. It's very good. I do appreciate, so Mike, to kind of refresh my concerns from what I've heard of season 1, it's the season 2 stuff sounded much more interesting to me, where it was
right,
really grappling with the themes about, how do you deal with, violence and war being glorified, a culture that glorifies violence and warfare, and those things are bad. And I was glad to see, because from what I understand, and I guess what I'm seeing, I've watched up to episode 5, which is still forfeit. I think it's right before it looks like there's gonna be a time skip in 6. I don't.
And you'll get to modern Thorfinn.
Yeah. So it was basically the Thorfinn as a little child, a little boy, and up to his dad dying, I guess.
Yes.
I have a hard time believing things unless I really see them on screen. But yes, there's that and him kind of surviving in the immediate aftermath of that is where I kind of left off. But I think I appreciate, it's very clear what the themes are from the first minute of the show.
Yes.
They're building those seeds. They're planting those seeds right away. That is not so I could see from what you guys told me in season 2, that's not really a huge shift. That's just the next evolution of this is the theme that we're going for. So I think that was cool to see, and I think it's pretty well done how they're establishing that. I could see, especially, I don't know. This is I don't know if I would call it nitpicking or just an observation, but there is the killing people is bad thing, but only if you are capable of being able to kill people, in which case it's really cool, but it's really cool if you can kill somebody, but you don't.
Not do this cool thing, yeah.
But you should still be able to kill people, because it's kind of cool anyway.
You should be able to kill people and then stop yourself out of the goodness of your heart.
Yeah, because his dad is kind of put on the highest pedestal, because he can murder everyone, but he chooses not to. Whereas the kind of the rest of the people,
I do that every day.
Whereas the rest of the people are from his village that are not competent enough to do that, or just you guys are fine, just go back home and be a family man.
I guess the idea is it's having the choice and choosing not to, right?
And also
as they say, pacifism only has meaning when upheld by the strong.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily bad, but it's also the fight scenes look really cool. They're they're very well animated.
You say that war is bad,
but it looks
the Vikings are very
cool Viking.
cool Viking. So I have not been around or involved in any of the Vinland Saga discourse, but I could imagine a lot of people missing the point in season 1.
Oh yeah, no, I am surprised that nobody has done a redraw of that Gundam meme, but it's just Thorkel throwing the javelin like 6 miles over the head of the viewer,
jumping from boat to boat, and But
I mean, the best redraw of that Gunpla meme is the dude saying "war is bad" and the bubble going over his head saying "Bye Gunpla." So,
the message is very clear and strong, and I think they're doing a good job developing it. It's just a little weird when then also the fight scenes look really cool,
there's always going to be. I mean, this is kind of the truth
duality,
of the duality of a lot of fiction, right? Especially fiction that gets into this kind of stuff of like anti-war and
no.
Oh boy. Oh man. Right? It's like
question mark.
No, I don't think this is anything. I think we need to drop this one. But
too yes,
Gundam broadly has an anti-war message, but the robots are very cool. Berserk is a story about overcoming trauma, but is also about a dude who cuts demons in half with a freaking 6-foot-long sword.
The slab of raw iron.
Yes, it could not even be called a sword. And Vinland Saga also, is another example of this genre of like it is a deeply introspective story about like the cycle of violence, but also damn, the cycle of violence looks good.
Yeah.
Makoto Yukimura is a very good artist.
Yeah, they really
and Mappa or Matt or no, the
Studio
first season
Wit.
was Wit. Studio Wit did a very good job with it. So
yeah. So I mean, that's I don't really have a huge problem with that. That's just kind of my only observation so far of like the little bit of conflict with that. And in some ways, I mean, it's kind of reinforces the point of like everybody is like that is what society their society they're in is like glorifying, right? So I mean,
right,
there is it's not really bringing the show down for me. It's just like I said, an observation, and I think the way they are depicting everybody kind of grappling with this concept at different degrees, like even the bad guys to some extent, like I feel like they're at least thinking about it. What after the incident with Thorfinn's dad, like, and they're not going to change their ways or anything, but like, I can't remember the leader of the
Askeladd.
Yeah, at that point, like, there's a lot of like shots of him just sitting there thinking, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
like,
would you say it brings up some interesting questions?
Yeah, and there's like
now,
and there's like like they don't. They're almost like cheering for Thorfinn at the end, right? Like it's just interesting how they handle all that, and it's very well done.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I think a thing that Vinland Saga always did well, even in its first season, even when it is more about wow, cool Viking, is like, okay. I mean, a lot of the characters in this show are dumb meatheads. Well, I mean, they live up to the Viking stereotype, but like, you rarely ever get a character, like even the character who people will hold up as the epitome of like, cool, violent Viking berserker guy, is not like, he is not a flat character. He is not just simply, he does not simply engage in violence for the sake of violence, right? Like they interrogate what motivates these characters. Why does violence come so naturally to them? What kind of society encourages that as like the simplest, most straightforward way to solve your problems? And like, occasionally we'll have a character, even the ones who are the like, who love the Viking lifestyle, will occasionally go, yeah, I mean, I guess we do kill a lot of people, don't we? I mean,
yeah,
it's not good, but what else would you have me do? And
it's interesting because you're seeing people engaging with that at different levels. Like some people, it might occur to them, but they won't give it a second thought, and then other people are going to be more pensive about it. And then so far, Thorfinn's dad has been sort of like the pinnacle of it, of
the end of that road, right?
Yes. The end game of all that. So, and and I'm only on episode 5, so I've got a long way to go.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, so far I am enjoying it. So once again, Vinland Saga, the best thing I'm watching, or somebody's watching in the season. So.
Yeah.
I just want to briefly make a quick shout out to our joint rewatch of Zeta Gundam, where we have reached the episode where they go to Space Switzerland, and there are people wearing weird Robin Hood hats, and they have a boat race. Anyway, next episode, tens of thousands of people die. It's not even a joke.
Yeah, no, I mean, Zeta's a classic, and Zeta is, again, we're running a bit long at this point, but I will just say that, like, the thing that is always interesting about Zeta, especially revisiting it now in 2023, is, like, knowing, like, the, like, nearly insurmountable task Yoshiyuki Tomino was given with, like, writing and directing the sequel to Mobile Suit Gundam, and kind of just consistently being impressed with
how few fucks he gave.
Yes, but also how good of a job he did. Like,
yes.
Like, I feel like there is the world where Gundam is a one-hit wonder. It's a one and done. Maybe Zeta is like the like sort of middling sequel that people don't really talk about, and then Gundam just kind of fades into the history books. But
I mean, in a meta sense, Zeta Gundam might be the most important Gundam show ever, because it's the show which turned it from a show into a franchise.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. And
I just find, like, it is a tremendous work. I just find it's, and let's be clear, extremely deliberate tonal whiplash, absolutely hilarious. Still, it's so good. It's so funny.
Yes, it is a good time.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode. Then, I think next time will be our season preview. So stay tuned.
Oh boy,
for that, everyone.
Keeps on turning.
Oh boy.
I haven't looked at any of it yet, but we'll deal with that next time. Let's do our housekeeping. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com. That is the only place you're going to regularly see updates at this point. Just the
social media, man, it's broken.
Like we mentioned, go check out Zig's Kamen Rider posts if you're into the Kamen Rider discussion. We still exist on Twitter and on co-host, but I'm finding without the automatic posting, I usually just completely forget to put things on there. I should probably do a better job with that, but we are there. On Twitter at the GLORIO blog and at GLORIO on co-host. Me personally, I've pretty much quit Twitter at this point myself, so I've been totally out of my mind.
It's kind of hard not to quit Twitter at this point.
I can't. I'm now more popular there than I've ever been in my career. So
I know. I have the luxury of doing that, but
one other thing is I did guest on the Updated Autopsy Report podcast, which talks about
a very good podcast.
The Ace Attorney series with longtime fans and newcomers playing through it. And I was there for the last episode of Ghost Trick, so
a good video game.
Yeah, you can find them at updated autopsy.report.
What is your exact co-host, Iro? Because you've put up a couple of good posts about some other.
Oh, I mean, those are not anime related.
Not anime related things, but I feel like there's a big Venn diagram there.
Sure. At Iro on co-host, right?
Yeah, you've got some. You've stirred up some hot conversation about Baldur's Gate 3 and CRPGs.
Sure.
Yes, and Gia, you're now one of the premier mecha influencers on Twitter.
Apparently, it's starting to turn that way.
Yeah, we go check that out. But all right, and of course the podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, all those good things. And tell your friends. Tell your enemies. We'll catch you for next time.